And and that's one of the joys of it actually, is how am I going to do this? For instance, with the big boat now, I've got the problem of how do I raise the mast, which is quite heavy and it's got to go up. Yeah. So at present I'm doing drawings and sketches and planning and everything for a gantry that I can use to raise the boat. And so you go to various sources, boating magazines, that sort of thing, and look for articles on how people do it, and then you adapt it yourself. So for the big boat I started with 5 sheets of A2 plans, and then careful negotiation with the lady of the house, I got permission in this long room to lay down 24 feet of MDF and draw the plan out full size, so that you can take the angles and the curves and everything to the full size of the boat. That's called lofting.
Right.
So you go plans, lofting, make the bits, and the last bit is assembly. Yeah.
Now, do all the members of the Wooden Boat Association have their own boats?
Not all of them, no. The association actually has 3 club boats that are available to club members to use. There are 2 sailing boats, there's a canoe, and there's a historic Port Phillip 12 sailing boat, which requires a really experienced sailor to sail.
Yes.
And they're available to members to use. We usually bring them out on sailing days at Albert Park, and the members rig them and put them in the water, and we have fun with that. And there's a lot of talking and jesting and that sort of thing goes on, leg pulling, that sort of thing. But a lot of them catch the bug, and then they choose a boat that they want, or a boat for their purposes. We've got some members who build kayaks, other members build other sorts of boats. I've got a friend who's built both a kayak and a little dinghy that he calls Hunka Munka.
Right.
And that was just to learn the techniques, I suppose, of modern boat building.
Yeah.
A lot of the modern boats now are built using epoxy glues and that sort of thing, and we tend to use the plywood rather than solid timber, unless you're building a seriously big boat.
Yes. So what's the attraction of the wooden boat compared to a steel or a fiberglass or another construction?
Well, fiberglass boats are very... You don't really build a fiberglass boat yourself. You can, but generally, that's a walk in, buy and come out, in my opinion, anyway. A steel boat, usually it's much bigger, and you need metalworking, welding, all those sort of skills. The other ones are the concrete fabricated boats, and that they're probably beyond. For the backyard builder, which is what most of our members are, wood is a suitable material, and it's available and you can get it, and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Some of our members are professional boat builders. Greg Blunt over in Williamstown, he supports us.
Yes.
Tom Whitfield, at his time when he was one of the founding members.
He was one of your mentors, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He came out and checked out Dad's boat for me. Tom was great. He was an English boat builder trained in England.
Yes.
Other ones, Alan Chin, who ran Ibis Boat Works over in Williamstown too. He supported me. He helped me mill all the timber for the big boat, and actually sourced a lot of the timber for me. So, and these were founding members of the association. So it gives you some idea as to how anyone joining the association has helped. If they want to build a boat, we're all for supporting them.
I haven't asked you, Geoff, how long the association itself has been going.
It started in 1989 with a group of friends. Some of those boat builders that I've named and some others, and they decided that they would build a traditional boat to try and preserve the skills and everything, and they built the club boat Begonia.
Yes.
Which
Can you talk a little bit about Begonia, because that's the biggest of the club boats?
Yes, that's right. She's about 16 feet long. She's a clinker sloop, That is, she has a gaff rig, that is a spar at the bottom, spar at the top of the mast, and one sail in front of the mast, yeah. And once more, she's lapstrake or clinker, that is the overlaid boards, and fastened with was it copper nails, that sort of thing. She was designed by Tom Whitfield, so she's a Tom Whitfield boat, and that first group built it, and out of that sort of little group came the desire to, well, let's set up an association that can preserve these skills.
Yes.
And so it's gone on from there.
But I gather there's quite a social component to the club. It's not all about, not all about just the boats.
No. A typical sailing day at Albert Park would begin at sort of, people start rolling up from about 10 o'clock. They might bring their own boat, or they might just come. We might have some work to do on our club boats. We usually pull out Begonia, and we pull out the smaller boat, Lindsay Simons, and rig them. Members will take them for a sail, and then about sort of the middle of the day, the boats magically appear alongside, and everybody tootles up onto the balcony at the Albert Park Yacht Club, and we have lunch together and catch up with one another, and it's really quite social. You know, we'll take people for a sail. Often we will, if somebody walking past, because you've got a lot of people promenading around the lake.
So you mean members of the public?
Members of the public, you know, will often stop and ask about the boats and everything, and if they appear really interested, we'll, you know, take them for a short sail in the boat, show them how it works and that sort of thing.
That's terrific. And you sometimes, I suppose, recruit a new member from that.
Oh yes, that's one of the ways. You know, we want to try and appear as an open, inviting group, not as aficionados and everybody knows and that sort of thing. No, we're willing to help anyone.
So for people who might be interested in this, or just want to find out whether they're interested, if they know nothing about boats, wooden boats at the moment, and they're not, you know, they haven't got a background of working with timber, they can still come along and find out about it.
I mean, my learning about timber stopped with basic woodwork in year 7. And then the little sailboat I built, I used only hand tools, screwed up, because it was a kit boat. I didn't have to form too much. So it was all just hand tools. But when I came to build the big one, I realised I was going to need a table saw and a whole lot of power tools. So I went to Holmes Glen and did a couple of weekends of wooden, sort of woodworking. And I went mainly to find the safety procedures with the various power tools. Find out what could happen. So I learned about kickback on a table saw and things like that, and what a router can do if you don't control it. And so I was able then to handle the big timbers that I needed to build.
And no injuries so far?
No injuries, a couple of hammered nails or things like that, but I had a supervisor though. We had a little rabbit, and he used to come up and stand beside me and survey what I was doing. So he made sure there were no accidents.
Right. I would imagine, I know nothing about this at all, but with the clinker boat, you'd assemble it upside down, you'd assemble the hull upside down.
Yes, they're usually done.
And then at some point you have to roll it over, is that right?
That's right, yes.
Is that a ceremonial sort of thing?
Well, it depends. If it's a small boat and someone's just building it at home, often they can manage to do it themselves. With the big one that I built, it was out in the backyard like a gigantic turtle. Upside down, and we had a wonderful Wooden Boat Association day here one day in 2010, where we all gathered, about 20 of us, husbands and wives and the lot of us, and with a lot of ropes and everything, we rolled the hull over, and then we used the Egyptian slave method to lift the hull and take it back up onto the framework that had been built on, so that I could fit it out inside. And that method was simply, we ran ropes underneath the hull and didn't matter whether you were a husband or a wife, you got down the side of the boat, that was it.
Right.
And the rope over your shoulder, and you bent your knees and straightened up and lifted the hull and took a step sidewards and so on, and we lifted it up there.
Overall, are there a lot of women who are members?
Usually they're spouses.
Right.
We do have a couple of other female members who sort of have come along as friends and that sort of thing.
Yes.
We try and be as inclusive as we can possibly be. We bring the children. Children sometimes find being in a boat boring because you can't go anywhere, and wooden boats don't have buttons and screens.
No. As apart from the sail days on the Albert Park Lake, which are what, a Sunday once a month?
Yes, the fourth Sunday of the month.
Yes.
In a fair number of the months of the year, we do have to get out when the Grand Prix is on.
Yes.
And we do use some of our sailing days, those Sundays, to do things like trips up the Maribyrnong or up the Yarra to Herring Island.
Right.
And so you'll have a flotilla of boats going up, and we all launch at the Warmies,
right,
there in Newport, and then up the Yarra, and then branch off to the Maribyrnong, or we go on up through the city, which is a great run in a boat.
Sounds fun.
In wooden boats, it always brings a lot of interest.
Yeah.
There's
something romantic about them, isn't there?
There is, yeah. And it's great. And actually, go along the Yarra. Once you get past Prince's Bridge, heading east, it's beautiful.
Yes.
You know, the parkland and everything around the Yarra, it really is quite stunning.
Well, what about sailing on the bay? Does that ever happen?
Yes. Each February, the last Sunday of February, we gather down at Rye, and we have a gathering there near the Rye Pier, where we all bring our boats, and we do that on the bay because those of us who have wooden boats with motors can't use them in Albert Park Lake.
Right.
We're not allowed to use motorboats in Albert Park. So we do go to other venues, which gives those members who have motorboats, wooden motorboats, the chance to actually join in a sailing day. So Rye is one of those. Coming up in November, we've got a sailing day down at Werribee South, and we'll trail our boats down there or sail our boats down to Werribee South. So we gather in places where as many members can do it, and we try to use a place where whether you've got a canoe or a kayak or a larger boat or something like that, we can all get together and enjoy the day.
So it sounds as though the Wooden Boat Association would welcome new members or just welcome people who want to find out a bit more about it.
Yes, and all people have to do is make contact.
Yes.
And they'll be welcomed with open arms.
And there's a website, from memory it's woodenboat.asn.au.
Yeah.
And I'll put that on the Agenda for Life
that
website
sounds good,
so people can have a look.
Yeah.
Geoff, just in closing, a more personal question really, rather than about the boats themselves. Do you have any tips? You seem to be very happily retired, if I can put it that way. Yeah. Do you have any tips for people who are approaching the retirement time in terms of getting ready for those years?
I mean, for me, it's been boats, but that goes back in life. But really, you should plan ahead for something you can do. What I've done is a two-pronged attach. Having been a teacher all my life, if you stop teaching, you sort of lose your identity. So I've been doing some casual academic work at one of the universities. So it's walk in, walk out, taking lab sessions, that sort of thing. So that I'm still doing what I've done all my life.
And that keeps your contact?
And then hobby-wise, there's the wooden boat. The other thing I should say about building wooden boats is it gives you the skills to be able to make things like bookshelves or tables or things when the people at home suddenly say, we've got too many books.
That would
say,
make
you
very popular with spouses and children.
Yes, exactly. But I would say it's important not to stop. Find some activity where you are working, and not so much working, but relating to people and being involved with people. And that's the advantage of something like the Wooden Boat Association, is you don't have to have a boat, but you can go along and enjoy boats, but more importantly enjoy the company of the people. just the same way as I enjoy the young people at university.
Yes.
Stops me from being a grumpy old man.